My favorite movie of all time, The Godfather. Always been deep in the stories and, suspenseful, cinematic, I always love those kind of movies though, that just has so much in it that it takes you back to wanting to see it again. We see these movies every year and every time they come on, you still stop and you gotta look at the whole shit, and even though you know it's gonna happen, but you learn little things. He was a killer with a heart. If you go back to the movie, you see parts of him where, he wanted out of the business. He wanted out of that life, but then an innocent girl got hurt, and he went back and he really cared for her, and to me, passion is so important as a person. You don't always want to come off as a bad person, because that might not be your heart. It might just be something that's around you that's making you go that way, but everybody has a good side to them, I was able to relate to that. And, like any other kid, I'm sure, we all been in the same circles of situations, at least some of us. And the movies right there really stick to the heart, though. Another one of my favorite movies, Scarface. It was a movie that we all rooted for the villain for, and I think these movies have reflected our cultures that we was living on amongst when we was kids too, We didn't know no way that was gonna be a way out for us, so it'll be the music, it'll be the movies that would guide us to making the decisions that we made in our lives. And I always was big on movies, especially, mob movies, Casino, and, don't get me wrong, I like comedy movies, but I never like going to the movies to see them. Either I'm going to see something pertaining to the mob or some action thriller shit, some karate shit, or or maybe something different. But I always was big on movies though, I felt like movies was just, imitations of people's lives and, seeing what they go through. So when it was time for me to write, I felt like I was painting pictures for what was around me. So movies always been big to me. I'm an author too, and I always been big on movies. I mean, guys look at me as, chef's a storyteller. Yeah, I came into business as, that was my craft, being part of Wu-Tang, is being a storyteller, and I was the guy that would paint pictures and, make records like Cream and Can It Be Also Simple that could paint a picture of where we came from and still make it entertaining and energetic. I'm a big De Niro fan, a big Al Pacino fan, James Woods, These is all my heroes when it comes to acting. And, I had the opportunity to meet a couple of those guys and I was quiet as hell, like being around Robert De Niro, I met him at a premiere. And, it was just a what's up. It wasn't like, oh, yo, you're my idol, you do what I do, you just don't rhyme, we the same, we the same guys, just we do shit differently, though. We always been big on karate movies, and yeah, I would definitely say one of my top ones is probably Five Deadly Venoms. That was definitely one of them joints. That'd be deep, though. Hey, first of all, I would love to see a movie like that because it'd be real interesting, and for who to play me, that'd be something I'll have to see. I would probably want them to play me, or I probably would want to play myself, but I probably would want somebody to play me though. I don't know. It's just, it could be a regular Joe Schmo off the street, as long as he got the energy and, I look at everything from the hands to the, everything, I'm sure when they did the NWA movie, they didn't just pick these guys up right off the street and say, yo, you got a job. Like, you had to really work for that. So I would definitely want to be hands-on with whoever my character is. And I would be on them like a coach and tell them, nah, that ain't me. Or from everything, from the sneaker to the haircut, everything. Nah, who did that? He fucked you up. No, that's not it. Grow your afro out. Now we got to do all. We're gonna carve him out to be the best Raekwon. Oh, De Niro, yeah,
I think he can pull it off.
yeah, probably dye his face a little brown and shit. Make him eat a couple of good turkey sandwiches, you know.